Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of Vegan Proteins Muscles by Brussels Radio. My name is Giacomo.
And I'm Danny.
And this is episode 190.
So we said we were going to do these episodes more. We did it once. And then the last time we were on a road trip, I think we didn't forget. We were just too busy doing other stuff on the drive down. But now we are road tripping back home from New Jersey for the second time in 2 weeks.
It's been pretty much nonstop. Well, second time in 2 weeks. We came home on Tuesday from Plantbuilt, and then we drove back on Friday, which was, 2 days ago?
Yep.
A lot of driving the past couple of days. It would be ridiculous if we did not take this opportunity to kill some time, but also do something really fun where we change it up a little bit.
Mm-hmm. And share with you what happened at the Vegan Strong Plantbuilt meetup while it is still fresh in our brains. So that's what this episode is going to be about. I know we've talked about it all year, how it was leading up to this event, and that happened, not this past weekend, but the weekend prior in Atlantic City with the bodybuilding, kettlebell, strongman, and powerlifting team. And if you guys remember, CrossFit competed in Tampa about a month and a half ago. So it's the first year we haven't all been together, but why don't you start the little recap here?
Where do we even start, Danny? This year far exceeded my already high expectations. My expectations were high because I knew, based on the caliber of athletes that we had, that we were going to most likely dominate and outcompete more so than we ever have before. And remember, this is 12 years in the making. This is our 7th team that we've put together. To be able to continue to outcompete our previous best year after year like this in a linear fashion, at some point, you're going to have to eventually accept that, well, maybe your team this year won't quite be as competitive as previous ones. But nope, I knew this team was going to be good. And not only were we exceptional out there, it was the best experience and the best message that we have ever put out all at once, both in person and then after the fact. We have all been pushing really hard to bond, have fun competing, and also tell the story of what we did and put it out there into the world. I am really, really pleased with what Plantbuilt has done this year.
Yeah, it's also interesting to me because I think one of the fears is, like, some of our team members have been on the team since we started we recruited in 2012 for the first year. So, some people have been there for a long time, and none of us are any younger than when we started. Giacomo and I did not compete this year, but some of our athletes that have been with us for a long time are still competing. And I feel like when the team started, so many of us were in our 20s, late 20s, maybe early 30s. And now it's like a good chunk of our team is 40 or in their 40s. And, you just never know how that's going to stack up against an open class, which means classes of people of all ages. And, it's just nice to see not just vegan athletes, not just natural athletes, but also athletes that are, we are not all 20 years old. I think we had some of our oldest team members we've ever had.
Well, Jerry Hintenberger is a new athlete on our team, but she's no stranger to competing. She's 67. And still getting better in kettlebell.
Yeah, so 67, that's definitely the oldest athlete we've had on the team.
And she's part of a mother-daughter dynamic duo with Jennifer Hintenberger, who is a 7 times over world champion with something like 60 plus, maybe even 70 plus at this point, gold medals. So we have some impressive athletes on this squad.
Tammy Albanese competed on our bodybuilding team. She's 58 years old and a grandmother. And she competed in classic figure, which does not have a master's class. So she did literally compete against 20-year-olds and a huge class too. And while we didn't get a placing in that class, I mean, she looked like a goddamn princess up there, I thought. That was really cool. But maybe we should talk about each of the teams sort of individually. Does that make sense?
Yeah, why not?
Okay. So first, let's talk about the powerlifting meet. So our powerlifting team, I want to say, was about 10 people this year. And it turned out to be kind of a small meet for a few reasons. One, the federation kept changing to kind of a smaller and smaller federation over the course of the year. And then because of the hurricane down in Florida, a lot of athletes like weren't able to make it up. So it did end up being a smaller meet than we had hoped for. But everybody did incredibly well, set state and national records across the country. We did have a world record, that's right. But even if we had been in a larger meet,
we still would have done very, very well.
Some of our athletes would have been super competitive. Like, unlike bodybuilding, which is really subjective, all of the other sports are significantly less objective.
Part of me has this weird feeling that we scared away the competition. They don't want to show up anymore because they know the vegans are coming, and what's the point? Obviously that's not true, but it kind of feels that way.
It could be a little bit true.
Maybe we dominated so hard that we're like, okay, we're not bringing our competition anymore. What's the point? Plantbuilt's there.
Yeah, but I mean, Katya and Nick, in specific, Katya Gorbacheva, who actually, I don't think has she been on our podcast? I know I've been on her podcast.
Once. Remember that podcast you recorded?
That's right. Yes, about body image stuff.
Yes.
I remember.
Okay.
I couldn't remember whose podcast that was. But yeah, her total was over 1,000 pounds. And I actually don't know her weight class off the top of my head. She's probably like $160 or something. So 160 pound woman, squatting, bench pressing, and deadlifting over 1,000 pounds. Now that's a single rep, for those of you who don't know. I don't remember her exact totals off the top of my head. Man, I wish I could. I should have looked that up before we started recording. But for example, she bench pressed 210 pounds. Like, consider that. A 165 pound woman. Oh man, I wish I could remember her deadlift, her final deadlift.
Put it this way, it's enough for her to win best lifter and this is not the first meet that she's done that at.
I want to say it was like 460 pounds. I think her squat was in the 370 range.
It's a lot.
It was a lot. It was awesome. Just awesome. Super, super awesome. Nick Squires, aka Meaty McSorley, if you know, you know. He lifted 1,755. 1,755
Is that
pounds.
his new best total?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
And in a large meet, those numbers would have put us near the top, depending on the meet.
That's a big number for a powerlifting total.
Yeah, and I mean, we had new lifters to the team. We had Vinny. We had Jerry. We had lifters who have been with us for a long time in Dame. Sarah, Michelle, Brittany. Yeah. I feel like I'm forgetting somebody right now.
Are you?
Obviously, Ryan Stills was there, but in a captain capacity. He wasn't competing. Although he did just get his shoulder replaced recently. So for a hot minute, like right now, only I can bench press more than he can. And I'm really enjoying just knowing that fact. I sleep better at night knowing that fact.
Have you told him that yet?
Oh, yes. I said I want to compete against you today in bench press.
What'd he say?
He said he's game. Forget about the fact that this man can squat alone more than I can squat, bench, and no, I think even with his probably 85-pound deadlift, 85-pound bench at the moment.
Sign up for a bench only.
I think he could still squat, press, just squat more than I can squat, bench, and deadlift together.
Okay,
that's a sad fact, or a very impressive fact rather, about Ryan Stills. Anyway, so that was awesome, and from a personal perspective, I got to watch most of the meet, which was nice. I got to watch my client and good friend Brittany on the team hit like all new PRs across the board in all 3 lifts. That was really exciting and a proud moment, Danny, for me.
Maybe you can shine and shed a little light on this more than I can. What is it about powerlifters, or moreover the powerlifting team in specific, that makes them, in my opinion, they have the biggest personalities out of all of the teams. They just, when they get together, the antics, the stuff that goes on, they're just a very lively bunch. Is it the sport? Is it our particular team? What is your opinion here?
I don't know. I don't know.
It's always been that way,
It's always
though.
been that way, even when it was a different powerlifting team.
Yeah.
You know, maybe this is going to be me being cynical here for a second. So there's probably two kinds of people that get into powerlifting. One, people who are just naturally like really strong, see the sport and they're like, I would be good at this.
Yeah.
Then there's the other group of people who are like, I would like to compete in a sport and do as little as possible in the competition.
Well, what does that mean?
Their competition is 9 reps.
Okay.
I don't know. Like, I think that's funny. Like,
Sure.
if you're the type of person to take that approach, you're probably pretty funny.
Okay.
And I don't mean this to say they don't train. They train unbelievably hard, but
they are the biggest jokesters and just all full of all kinds of stuff going on that you just, the other athletes just take their sport and how they approach it seriously and a little more.
that makes
just
it sound
like
the powerlifters don't take it
no,
seriously.
they do, but they have fun while they're doing it. They just seem to have the most fun out of all the sport. Strongmen, I think, they're a close second.
So it depends on who. Some people are very serious about their sport, and some of them have more fun with it, I think.
Yeah, there's opportunity for it.
Speaking of, let's move on to the strongman team. So I unfortunately didn't get to watch any of this.
I watched a little bit of it.
Not because I didn't have time. I was there because it was so deep with people. You couldn't get to the area where they were having their competition. I couldn't get over to it because it was so crowded.
Yeah. Well, they bring a big draw, because those of you who have not watched Strongman, you'll see a lot of interesting things happen. Like
Crazy thing.
Punch buggy.
Punch buggy?
What do you call it? Volkswagen Beetle?
Yeah, they I don't even think it was a Beetle. Maybe it was. There was a car lift. They literally had to like
hoist it.
Put on a pair of suspenders that was holding a car and walk it across the room. Or I think the women just had to stand for as long as they could.
Yeah.
But Angeline still walked it across the room.
The only female
she's insane
out there to even be able to do it at all, correct?
I didn't get to see it, so
That's
I'm
what I
not
heard.
entirely. Oh, if you say so, then I believe you.
I forgot who told me, but it's hearsay. But regardless, Strongman creates a spectacle. This is very interesting to watch.
They're picking up enormous rocks and like hurling them around. I saw at one point them picking up this thing in the videos afterwards. It looked like a coffin. Like it was shaped like a coffin, and they had to pick it up and sort of hug it and run it back and forth. I don't know what these things are called.
Weird.
And I'm sure if I looked at the scoring on it, it would make sense to me. Like some of it I'm sure is for distance, some of it is for time, and they probably get points for each event. But I think our strongman team was the most competitive team we had this year.
Really?
Absolutely.
Well, I remember Brady recruiting the team, and he was like, I want every single weight class to feel pressure that there is a vegan that's going to dominate. And he pretty much succeeded.
Delivered.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. We took home 4 tridents, and each trident represents us winning a weight class.
We took home 4 tridents, and Ray also won first place in, I guess they call it amateur. He won first place in amateur and now can never compete as an amateur again. So we won 4 first places in open and a second place, in a class where a vegan won first place and then a vegan won second place. So we can't be mad about that, right?
And Ray is fairly new to the sport.
Yeah.
Within only a couple of years, he managed to go straight from novice to pro. Mm-hmm. Wild.
And so Rick Carroll, Melissa Busta,
who was originally an IFBB bikini pro, and now I think is, and fact check us here, but
she's one of the best.
She may be the very first vegan female strongman athlete to cross over and win in nationals and go compete. And she did that. She qualified.
Well, apparently 4 of our athletes have now, in the strongman team, have now qualified for the Arnold, which, like, the Arnold is not a joke.
No.
And, we pride ourselves on having a drug-free team.
Correct.
All of our athletes are natural.
Every single athlete.
And we try to compete in drug-tested events specifically so we can compete on a nice level playing field.
Correct.
So the bodybuilding show, the powerlifting meet, There are no drug-tested strongman competitions.
Not at this time. That may change. I've spoken to different strongman athletes about it, and they say there may be something in the works. But as of now, no. It's just, and the bigger the platform and the more competitive it gets, obviously the people who dope, it's just going to be a higher percentage of them out there.
But we could be feeding our athletes to the lions in sending them out there to compete against enhanced lifters, but thus far we're not. Like, they're holding their own.
Yes, they are.
Which is incredible.
Yep.
And yeah, excited to see what happens at the Arnold. We had some new team members on the strongman team as well, Melissa Busta being one of them, Colin Ferriet. Oh, Andrew Keys also won a Trident, right?
Yes, he did.
And Tom Butts.
You said Angelina right? That's the fourth, right?
Angeline won a fourth. Yeah, that was the 4 Tridents.
Yep.
Which Andrew Keys came over from England, as did Tom Butts.
Tom Butts hurt himself, and he still won his weight class, and he was so pissed. He's like, I forget. Do you know what the injury was in specific that he sustained?
No.
Whatever blow he took. Regardless, he was pissed because he's like, I think he was a little out of practice because he wasn't used to whatever they were doing here compared to what they usually set him up to compete in the UK, and he just wasn't prepared. And he felt like if he didn't get hurt, he probably could have placed even better, but he still wound up winning his weight class, which is crazy.
Yeah. I can't imagine competing with the jet lag of being across the world. Like, it was the strongman team was fantastic. Our bodybuilding team was, for the first time ever, it was an all-female bodybuilding team, which that's never happened.
That's wild.
Yeah, it was kind of neat. We had men on the team, and then for various reasons, they had to drop out. So we ended up with 6 women on the team, and I think thus far it was our most competitive team as a whole.
Right. Okay.
Evelyn Santos flew up from Brazil. She was probably the highlight of the entire team for everybody, I think.
Yeah.
She flew up from Brazil. She spoke very little English, although her English got better like every hour.
Really?
She was there.
It was crazy.
And she won the amateur Miss America bikini, which means she is now a pro, which
in 6 different organizations.
Which, I mean, I knew was going to happen.
Oh,
as soon as I saw her, I was like, oh, we got the...
Didn't make it any less exciting.
We got this one in the bag. So that was really exciting to see that. We also had Maddie McConnell, who won... There's like 3 enormous natural bodybuilding shows
She
in the
just
country.
finished a year in which she took first overall in the pro division in figure. Then she came to Mr. America with us. And
she got second. I think maybe that could have gone the other way.
Judging is highly subjective in bodybuilding.
Yes.
So you don't really know how the scoring is going to go. You can't accurately, properly predict what exactly it is that they're looking for. It's one of those things, and I feel like the judging at Mr. America is a little on the newer side. They're not quite established with what they're looking for yet. I'm not even quite sure if they know, and I think these are my personal feelings, that each, or not organization, but each competition, those world-class platforms and competitors, they're up against a different kind of look that the judges are going for, and I think we're still trying to figure out what that is at Mr. America, because I think they are too, in all honesty. That's my perspective.
Yeah, they probably have judges from all these different organizations that are looking for something slightly different, and I think they got to iron the kinks out for that, because Mr. America is an unsanctioned bodybuilding show, which is unusual in and of itself, but it's neat because you get all the best athletes from all of the natural organizations together. It was super, super tight between first and second place, and they both looked absolutely incredible.
That is true.
I think it could have been like literally a coin toss.
Correct.
As to which one of them won.
And that's just how it goes, right? Well, you'll have an athlete who could theoretically win first again and again and again, but you'll have 2 athletes just like that go head to head at different world-class events, and they'll trade off between each other, back and forth, back and forth. You see it in bodybuilding all the time.
It's a I think that's why bodybuilding is a tough sport for a lot of people to swallow, because in powerlifting, you lift the weight or you don't lift the weight. In strongman, you get the time or you don't get it.
Yeah.
Kettlebell, you get the reps or you don't. Bodybuilding, it's like, it's like, oh, well, this one maybe had a slightly better shape, or this one had better shoulders, but the other one had better hamstrings, and it gets really kind of messy. So you can't, in bodybuilding in particular, you cannot take the placings too seriously. Of
And
course,
it's hard not to, because
Yeah.
it's human nature to look for reason and to find something to blame. Even though you're saying, what could I have done differently, you start to, because there's no clear-cut rules, just
Yeah.
like there are in other sports. It's not you versus the amount of weight you lifted. It's an entirely different thing, right? So it can get real tricky. And then you have bodybuilders who are dieted down and the stakes are high, and it's really hard to work with sportsmanship and class and poise and patience. Even when you think about it and to yourself, whether you're discussing it with your coach or with your friends or this or that, like it's hard not to take it personally. It really is.
well, nobody goes out there to not win.
Exactly.
But you could, I mean, I've seen many times someone shows up with the best physique and they don't win.
Yeah.
Or like, some of the placings are kind of messed up in my opinion.
Correct.
But again, because it's so subjective.
It happens.
It happens all the time.
Yeah.
So you just can't get too hurt by it on paper.
I am interested in seeing how Maddie places at
Worlds.
Because I think this is her first year doing it, where she's literally going to the 3 best shows in the world back to back to back.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bucket list item for her before she goes to get knee surgery next year. And then who knows where she'll be after that. I'm assuming back to competing. But yeah, we'll be watching her and seeing how she places at the 3rd. So she first and then 2nd, and then however she places in a couple months from now.
Mm-hmm.
Or not even. Yeah,
Dai, who is also Brazilian, she lives in New Jersey. She competed in Pro Wellness, and she brought the most insane package I have ever seen her bring.
Gosh.
It was...
She blew last year's package out of the water, and she was dangerous last year. She popped out there.
Yeah, she was still dangerous this year.
Oh yeah, even more so.
If you go just look at her Instagram page, it's pretty jaw-dropping. Like, she has a shape that doesn't seem like it should be achievable by a mere mortal.
Somehow she keeps improving too.
I don't understand it. I'm like, she must represent the genetic ceiling of what is possible to build in your lower body.
Yeah, it's pretty intense.
Wellness is not my favorite class because by definition it is unbalanced. They have much more developed lower bodies than upper bodies. I know a lot of people love that look, but to me bodybuilding is about balance, and wellness being unbalanced by definition, it's just not my favorite. But I mean, her look, in my opinion, is just undeniable for the category.
Yeah, and she wears it well. She has a very strong stage presence. She poses and just the way that she looks out there, it's like you belong at the top of the pack every single time, basically.
And then we had Shelly, who competed with us last year as well. She is a goddess.
Yeah.
I'm pretty convinced.
Oh, yes.
I forget how old Shelly is. I want to say she's like 51. I think it was last year she said she was 50. So maybe she's 51.
At least 50, because I believe she can compete in Masters 50 plus. Yeah.
And she looks like Jessica Rabbit from Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Yes.
In the best way possible. She looked amazing out there. She competed in Masters figure, which is over 35, which don't get me started on that bullshit. I was thinking about that a lot this weekend. Masters used to be 40 plus, and then they changed Masters to 35 plus for women only.
Look, I could understand it in untested divisions and organizations where the enhancement from PEDs ages everyone. I mean, I still think it's discriminatory because they don't do that to men.
Exactly.
First of all,
that's my beef.
First
right
of all,
there.
but at least they have I don't want to give them any excuses. They might have an excuse. I still think, like you, that's BS.
Yeah.
But
also, I think it's really just shitty to start pretending 35 years old is like old.
Not cool at all.
I actually think there should be like 40 to 50 category, 50 to 60 category.
Yeah.
I understand that at some shows that would mean like a class of 1 person or 2 people, and that's a boring show to watch. But anybody can also compete in the open.
Yeah.
And that's anybody.
Yep.
And of course, Coach Alice, also went up there in women's pro bikini, and she looked amazing. We peaked like beautifully. Yeah, she really brought it. She brought a great look, a look we could be really, really proud of. She's definitely earned herself the off season that she's going into right now. And of course, my client Tammy, who competed in classic figure, which is a figure category that's in a one-piece suit. They're like these beautiful velvet one pieces with like cutouts through the abdomen area. I'm not into the glitz and the glam of the competitions, but those suits are like stunning. And she looked so good. And her goal was, this was her first pro show that she ever competed in, which, you know, she had earned her pro card. And her goal was to come back with more muscle. And we did. I want to say that since we started together, I want to say she put on like 4 pounds of muscle, and she's 5 feet flat. So like that's a significant amount for a 5 foot tall, 58-year-old woman to put on. And I went to the gym with her for her final workout, and I got a bunch of videos of it. And I mean, she like 5 feet tall. She's like 103 pounds. She's tiny. And she did like 8 pull-ups, and she was curling a 50-pound barbell, and 58 years old, depleted, 103 pounds. Good Lord. I was watching her like, man, I need to up my game a little bit here. It was just awesome. And she left no stone unturned. So pretty cool stuff. And finally, we can talk about kettlebell. So kettlebell sport, so many people don't know what kettlebell sport is. They have no idea. It is a series of lifts. So, I mean, most people know what a kettlebell swing is. People use kettlebells in the gym on a regular basis to do things like presses and curls and Turkish get-ups. No, that's not what kettlebell sport is. Kettlebell sport is, I think, 3 lifts. There's a clean and jerk with either one arm or 2 arms. There's a jerk, which is just from your chest up over and over. And there's a snatch, which is from, you know, like a kettlebell swing.
They call the clean and jerk a
right
long cycle,
over your head.
Correct?
Yes, they call it clean and jerk.
1 arm and 2 arm long cycle.
Long cycle. And they compete in, there's all these different lengths of time.
5, 10, and 30, I want to say.
I think the most classic amount of time is a 10-minute set.
And 30 is called a marathon.
And they pick the weight that they are going to use, and they do as many reps as they can in that time, in 10 minutes. And if it is a 2-handed thing, they can't put the weight down, not once. If it's a 1-handed event and it's 10 minutes, they can change hands once. If it's a 30-minute event, they can change hands as many times as they want. But we are talking about 30 straight minutes of one movement with a kettlebell.
Well, here's the other interesting component here. There is a cap on reps. I don't know if it's for all of their events.
It's not for all of them.
But certain events have a cap where you are not allowed to go past a certain amount of reps, because at some point, that's the amount that you should do, and now you should focus on perfect form. So they literally watch them, and they want their form to just continue to improve versus just cranking out more reps. So we have more than one athlete that can hit the cap. And that's not an easy thing to do. Obviously, that's like the peak. That's like as good as you could possibly be. And now you got to just, how pristine can you be, like, to achieve technical mastery? And they watch this stuff. Yeah. It's a pretty interesting sport. It's really intense, actually.
It's kind of, to me, it reminds me of marathon running or distance running, but with weights. Like, you need the same mentality that you would need to do distance running, of just like almost zoning out and putting one foot in front of the other no matter what.
Yes.
But it's with weights.
Yeah.
And that is so fascinating to me. You know, it's sometimes very interesting to watch, like the final minute or two of each set, or even the final 5 minutes of a 30-minute set. There was a relay at one point where it was 5 team members, and they each did a lift for 2 minutes straight, and like as hard as they could. That was my favorite thing to watch.
Yeah.
But it's insane, and they do all this weird math to come up with the scores. So at that point, it then eludes me. I don't understand how they are scoring things. I know we won a lot of first places. We won
17, I want to say.
I think we won best lifter, right? Jennifer Hintenberger was best lifter.
Yes.
And Sarah Lee, who's the captain of the team, was most weight lifted, and she lifted just under 40,000 pounds.
She's so humble too. You would never know it talking
in
to her.
55 minutes.
How many pounds in under 55 minutes?
It was like 39,500 and something in 55 minutes. That's insane.
Justin made a comeback. When Justin Carstetter initially joined our team, was it while he was on our team or right before he was on our team where he had the accident that affected his ability to lift?
It was while he was on our team.
While he was on our team, he got into a really bad accident and he had to get some artificial stuff put in his body, some metal, essentially. And he was no longer able to do kettlebell. And it put him out of commission. He kept exercising, but he just could not lift regularly. He could not compete.
They didn't even know if he was going to walk again.
And this man, this athlete of ours, found a way to persevere, and he kept going. And he got to the point where he was able to step on stage with us as a bodybuilder, because he couldn't compete. He knew he couldn't compete in kettlebell, but he was able to get himself to a place where he could get lean and somewhat muscular. Not enough to like compete and win, but enough to go out there and not only not embarrass himself, to actually look decent, like look the part, right? I think it's still a little hard for him to pose because his body's sort of limited range of motion wise. But as far as how he looked out there, it was pretty damned impressive considering he was at a place where he was possibly like never going to walk again. That's what the doctors were telling him. And then I remember putting the feelers out there to see which one of our athletes wanted to compete again before we started scouting for new athletes. And Justin said, "Hey, guess what?" I said, "What?" And he goes, "I'm going to compete in kettlebell sport again." I was like, "Are you kidding me?" I was like, "I thought you were never..." He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "It turns out my body's in good enough shape to do it." So to see him have a full come around 10 years later to his sport of choice, oh my gosh, like just what an incredible athlete. Incredible person.
That was cool. And because he wasn't on prep and all dieted down, we got to have better conversations also, because no brain fog. We also had several international athletes on the kettlebell team.
Oh, yes.
Jennifer Hintenberger and her mother are from Canada. Stephen Riddle's from Canada.
Yes. Tim Bell from Canada.
Tim Bell. No, Tim Bell
is from Canada.
Are you certain?
I'm not certain.
So he's from the UK. He's
no,
definitely...
that's Nicholas Thick. You're confusing with Nicholas.
He's right. He's right. Yeah, Tim Bell's from Canada. Nicholas Thick is from the UK.
Yes, Tim is definitely from Canada too.
Yeah. And, you know, without understanding all of the scoring, I know we won a lot of first places.
I am particularly, to me, this was the year of kettlebell because we have been unsuccessfully trying to find an organization that wanted to put on a highly competitive kettlebell sport event to go to, and we've been unsuccessful at pooling together a team of vegan kettlebell sport lifters. And we have been trying desperately to do this for like 10 plus years straight. And finally, friends, we now have had our time with, and believe it or not, we have already been looking into and have connected with vegan kettlebell sport lifters for 2025. This team should get even better. So to me, this was what we've been looking for all along in kettlebell. We finally got our due at an event that was highly competitive with some of the most competitive kettlebell sport lifters in the world who, spoiler alert, they're vegan.
Yeah,
no surprise there.
So we do this. Well, one, it's a ton of fun. Like just to have all these people together, and every new person you meet is like you've known them forever. That's
correct.
Mind blowing. As like a crazy introvert, it's never not true. And also, you know, the real reason we're there is to show people that you can build muscle, be a competitive strength athlete as a vegan, as a drug-free vegan. It's, you know, as much as times are changing, it's still a pervasive message in a lot of parts of the world that you can't do it as a vegan. So trying to find these big competitions to go to as a huge group and show, no, it's not just one person with great genetics that's winning. Like, it's a lot.
The funny thing to me is we do this year after year and we continue to dominate, and it's like, well, what do we have left to prove? We've already done it. And it's almost like part of me is like, this is kind of silly, but then I turn around and I'm like, oh no, it's not, because not only are we dominating, we're getting even better at it. And I still don't have the full medal count here from everything we've done as a team on the whole. I just know what we did at Mr. America, which is we
48.
took 48 first place medals, 55 medals in total, 67 records, one being world and one being national in powerlifting, 4 tridents in strongman.
Well, that's one of the first place medals, right? Yeah, those count towards the first place medals.
Right, but we have like some extras here.
But there were only
all over the
36 of
place.
us.
Best of.
There were only 36 athletes at this particular event, and we took home 48 first place medals. Like, that's pretty badass, I think.
And I think to myself, like, can we do any better than this? Like, is there anything better than this? Is it even possible?
Well,
the answer is yes.
Yes, there is.
I can't believe it, but it's true.
Are we going to be able to find all of those sports at one event?
No.
Probably not. And that is kind of the bittersweet thing, is we're debating we may have to split the team. Like, we split off CrossFit this year to get them to a better competition.
That.
We are probably going to have to do it again if we want to keep making sure that these athletes, you know, like the powerlifting meet, they kind of showed up and competed against very few people.
Correct.
Again, they set national records and stuff, so it's still very impressive. But we want them to be competing against people. They want to compete against people. So I feel like we're going to have to split up the team so we make sure people get to go to the best competitions they can.
Which is
sad, personally.
Yes, but on the flip side of the coin here, we will have the capability to compete in the summer and in the fall, which will give us a chance to have the good times rolling year round. And I think it will give us some good momentum and give us a chance to just continue to make noise throughout the year, as opposed to like that one big thing that we do.
Right, because part of the message is not just to the people at the event, which it is. Part of it is re-hyping these athletes up so that they go home excited and, you know, continue to talk about this message and what it is we do. But also, when we make this big spectacle, we get more media attention, which helps to spread that message further and wider. I mean, in the last year or so, we've had 4 Business Insider articles written about the team and various team members, and that's just one example.
Fox picked us up. Some local newspaper and TV outlets picked up several of the athletes on the team already this past week alone. Some vegan media like Plant-Based News, for example. And we are just getting started.
And it's not
what we're going to put out there.
It's not an ego thing.
No.
Although, of course, it's cool to see something that you built in something like the Huffington Post or whatever.
It's activism.
You know, hopefully there's some kid out there or young adult who's like thinking about going vegan but afraid they're going to lose their gains, and then they see that and they're like, oh, let me look into this more. Like, that's what it's all about. That's literally what it's all about.
We want to cast as wide of a net as possible. We want to reach people from the far reaches of the world in every and any way possible. And so we just continue to spread, as opposed to putting that message out there in the most likely spots, like sports alone or vegan media alone. We're going all over the place. Like, for example, in just 9 days, we'll be at the New York City Marathon, being exposed to about 100,000 people. A large part of those individuals are ones that are running the New York City Marathon, and others are supporters of the marathon or fans of the marathon and the runners. And that's the first time we're doing that event. And it's like, how many people can we reach? And we'll have this quick little 3-minute highlight reel of everything that we did playing on loop at our Vegan Strong table. And with that, we'll be able to have conversations and make it transactional, where we can exchange information and hopefully reach more people in person too. And this team, our Plantbuilt team, gives us the opportunity to do that. They give us something to talk about.
I also just want to give a quick shout out to all the volunteers that we cannot pull this event off without the volunteers.
It takes a lot of selflessness to be a part of an experience in that particular way, because you really have to push hard, right? Because you have to make sure that not only the athletes are comfortable and performing well, that what they're doing at the moment is captured properly. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of responsibility.
Yeah. So Athena was in charge. Like, she's the one in charge of all the volunteers, which is amazing.
Yes.
Ben and Sawyer. Poor Sawyer.
Can we shout out our friend Jimmy over here?
Jimmy, our best friend at home where we live. Jimmy and Sawyer came down and they drove the vans, which is the hardest job of the entire event. Brandon and Bradley came out and helped. Alice's boyfriend Carson was super helpful.
Alexandra, Jerry's partner. We had scorekeepers this time around, so that the second everything was done, all the medals were tallied up and we could instantly capture that, like, on site and talk about it and push it out there.
Mike, Tammy's husband, Ethan, Maddie's husband.
Yes.
Did
you say Carson already too?
I did say Carson.
Okay.
But we had so much help, and I know Dave and Tammy wanted to be there, but they couldn't make it because of the Florida storm.
Heartbreaking.
It was heartbreaking, but you know, luckily the people we had were still able to pull everything off together, and very, very grateful for that. And we got to have our awesome Vegan Proteins meetup the days before Plantbuilt as well. Sans Christina, again, the storm in Florida kept her away.
Which is also sad.
But we did get to sit down and plan a ton of social media content for you guys, like YouTube podcasts for next year, and very pumped about that.
Speaking of which, now is the time. So if you're listening or watching right now and you have something in specific, a spark, if you will, and an idea of what you want us to talk about, now is the time before we lay it out for 2025. But that being said, whenever you have an idea, if you throw it out there, there's a decent chance we'll be able to talk about, create something around your idea, especially if it's a good one.
I hope you guys can see the beautiful foliage behind us as we're driving at freaking 20 miles an hour on the highway.
Don't start.
We're not even. I just realized we're not even in Connecticut yet.
I don't do well
My
in traffic.
good Lord.
I got to get better at that.
Oy, oy, oy.
Well, we're on the subject of thank yous, our sponsors, because without our sponsors, we are also not able to do this. And these are companies that have moral and ethical belief in our compassionate team of athletes, so much so that they're willing to sponsor us. Some companies, it's not about marketing per se to them, it's about what we're doing, and they want to be a part of it. And to me, that's huge. And our three main sponsors, and maybe I'm losing count here, but we have Plant Fusion, who is our longest running sponsor. They were the first ones to back us way back in the day when no other company was willing to or interested in. They were like, yep, what you all are doing, like, we believe in this, like, let's do this thing. They gave us the ability to donate to farm sanctuaries, for example. They supply the team with protein. Awesome company. Ultima, the electrolyte hydrator company, and their stuff is really good too, and they've been sponsoring us for a while. I remember talking to them, like, if there's one good thing that we do outside of business, it's like we're going to put something good out there in the world, and it's going to be sponsoring y'all, and we're going to stick with it. And they've been with us for several years now. And then Hodo Tofu, and I remember falling in love with their chef Henry at the expo. I was like, what a sweetheart of a man. Yeah. And honestly, he's what really hooked me to the company. And
it's too bad because he doesn't work there anymore.
That's okay. His spirit is still there.
Yeah.
And my heart's with the company, honestly, largely in part.
Their tofu, okay. So this is, I would say this if they weren't sponsoring us. They make something called an all-day scramble, which is tofu, but it tastes like eggs. You don't even have to cook it. I just mixed it with some Vegenaise and salt and pepper and made sandwiches, like egg salad sandwiches out of it. So it's not just egg, it's literally tofu. But definitely check that out if you can find it. But their regular extra firm, I don't even know if it's called extra firm, their regular tofu is so firm. It's like super duper firm. Yeah. If you like your tofu firm, that's the stuff. Hodo's tofu, it's firmer than Wildwood, it's firmer than the Trader Joe's stuff. Hodo's tofu, definitely. And it's got better macros too.
And I also just want to say thank you to all the sponsors over the years in general, because it's hard to continue to support something, but we have had many companies over the years who have helped propel what we do. and who have believed in what we do. So thank you for all of y'all out there.
All right, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Vegan Proteins Muscles by Brussels Radio. If there is anything you want to hear us talk about in 2025 on the podcast, you better put it in the comments down below or shoot us an email, coach@veganproteins.com. Interested in any kind of one-on-one coaching, veganproteins.com. Fill out a coaching application. You'll hear from one of us. Once again, my name is Danny.
And I'm Giacomo.
And we will talk to you soon. Bye.